What's up, Mets'd listeners? Welcome back to a bonus episode of the Mets'd podcast. We are here with old friend, recurring guest, Wayne Randazzo. You know him from doing the radio games of the Mets, now the Angels, also Apple TV. I think question that most people definitely want to hear. You have the privilege of watching Shohei Ohtani play every single day. There was a weird survey that went viral on Twitter earlier this week via Morning Consult that said Shohei Ohtani is not one of the 25 most popular players, Major League Baseball players in America. And I just want you to kind of tell the people what it's like watching him every single day. Wax poetic about Ohtani.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, I saw you had the number two highest jersey sale with right there with Ronald Acuna. I'm surprised he's not number one. I mean, Shohei is really we call him the unicorn. I mean, he's the ultimate baseball player. He's like the best kid in Little League and doing it on the major league scale. The fact that he can hit the way that he does on the days that he pitches. I mean, he's hit close to 400 on the days that he's pitched this year, and he's been a hit away from the cycle three different times in games that he has started. He's had like 3-hit games as a starting pitcher this year. But that's the next day, when a starting pitcher throws 6-7 innings and then he needs that time to recover and rest and get prepared for the next start, those 4 or 5 days off in between. He doesn't take those. I mean, he's hitting every single day. He has only missed 2 games all year. And it's that next day, I think, that really is the most impressive, that he comes back from a 7-inning performance on the mound and goes right back into batting second or third in the lineup or even leadoff some days, and is a main part of the Angels offense. I mean, he's been one of the best sluggers in all of baseball over the last few years. This year leads the major leagues in home runs and triples and many other categories that he is setting the standard in throughout the game. Plus, he's one of the best starting pitchers. He's not had the best year as a starting pitcher, but he still had a really good one. He's on pace to have a 50 home run season or more, to strike out 200 hitters or more on the mound. I mean, it's there's nothing ever that's been like it. There's always those comparisons to Babe Ruth. Really, it's surpassed anything that Babe did as a two-way player, because he really didn't do it as a two-way player. He pitched as a member of the Red Sox. He hit as a member of the Yankees. He really didn't cross over much. It was, I think, 1 year where Ruth was really considered a two-way player in 1919, or the year before he went to the Yankees. So there really hasn't been anything like this. And I think Shohei's locked up the MVP he locked it up in June. And I don't think many players can really say that, but there's no way anybody's going to be the American League MVP aside from Shohei.
No, as long as that guy exists, it's going to be tough to beat. Speak about the energy at the stadium, because you're doing the Angels games now. What's it like when he's on the mound, when he's, in the game? Like, how does the vibes just kind of go up a little bit?
Yeah, it's changed, I think, as the season has gone along. I mean, keep in mind he won the MVP 2 years ago, and he was close last year. It really took Judge's 62 homer season to get Shohei to not win MVP last season. So I think from the beginning of this year to where he is now, considering how well he's done, there's a real buzz in the ballpark now when Shohei is batting, let alone the times that he's pitching and batting. I think those games always have an extra jolt to it. It's similar to being around the Mets when Jacob deGrom would pitch, really at the height of his powers. Those moments when deGrom was pitching, you felt it in the ballpark. There was a different electricity. And it's like that when Shohei is pitching and hitting in the same games. But I think it's like that now every time he bats. And we saw it at the All-Star game, how the Mariner fans took to Shohei. And I'm curious if that's going to start a trend around some of the stadiums the Angels go to now, that there will be a sort of a different reverence for Shohei and almost a recruitment from opposing fan bases. And, we'll hopefully see it at Citi Field when the Angels come there at the end of August.
Yeah, I even think I saw a month or two ago that the Cubs were selling Ohtani jerseys in their team store, like during their games. It seems like there's every baseball fan, every baseball team has kind of come together to like marvel at the magnificence that has been Ohtani this year. But you mentioned the energy at Citi Field. You're going to be in Citi Field recording this Friday morning tonight for the Apple TV broadcast of the Mets and Dodgers. What are you most excited to be back at Citi Field for? Like, what are you most excited to see? What are you most excited to do in New York? Anything?
I don't know. Shake Shack, I think, is the one thing I'm looking forward to. No, it's going to be great. I'm excited to be back at Citi Field. It's a special place to me. Eight seasons with Mets radio, and I'm excited to walk into the Mets radio booth and give Howie a hug and Madge and see those guys. I was talking about it yesterday with some people. Just even the people around the ballpark. Big Dom down in security and just the different faces you see at Citi Field, in the video boardroom, in the food room. I mean, there's a great sense of community amongst people that are working there and that are involved in the Mets organization. And I miss that. I miss being at the ballpark. I think it's a great stadium, and I haven't seen the video board in person yet, so that'll be the first time seeing that. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be there, and see some familiar faces around, whether they're people that work at the ballpark or Mets fans that are there. It's going to be a fun night for me to be back at Citi Field.
Since we last spoke, there's been a lot of different things going on with you. Obviously, you were with the Mets with the radio. Now you do the Angels and you have the Apple TV games as well. What would you say the biggest differences are between maybe the three? Like, what would you have to change or alter, if anything?
When you do a national game, I think it's a different sort of bear. I mean, you really have to get to know these teams. You want to avoid the whatever fan base saying, "Well, you don't know our team. You don't know what's going on. You're not watching every day. You don't know the ins and outs of that particular team." So there's a lot of research and a lot of reading and a lot of watching highlights and stuff just to get to avoid that. I mean, really, you want to sound like you have a handle on what's happening with these teams. Now, tonight's game will be a lot easier for me. I certainly know the Mets, still keep up with the Mets, and the Dodgers are not far from where the Angels are. And you almost, I always felt like being with the Mets. I knew the Yankees too. It just felt like osmosis, just from being around in New York, that the Yankees were in your face too. So there was a lot. If you read any of the New York papers, you would read, just even come across Yankee stuff, and it's different learning about them than it would have been another team from another city. So Mets Dodgers is a good matchup, and for me, it's an easy one to prepare for. But I think week to week, it depends which teams you get, and how much that entails the preparation to get ready, so that you're not blind on things that are happening with that team in that moment. So it's a lot of extra work doing the national. It's a lot of extra travel doing the national game too. I mean, I got to go back to California tomorrow morning for the Angels and Astros tomorrow night. So there's a lot of back and forth. Doing the national games, we end up in New York quite a bit between the Mets and the Yankees. There's a lot of times up here in the Northeast for somebody that's working in Southern California largely. So those are some of the main differences, but it's a great opportunity. I think Apple TV's done a really nice job putting this package together, especially in this second season and now moving forward. So it's been good. The Angels' job has been great. Working with Mark Gubiza, who was a great pitcher for the Royals, kind of I think similar to Ron Darling in his time with the Mets, is kind of Gubiza's role with the Royals, and now he's been doing Angels TV for a long time. He's made it a really easy transition for me, and it's been great. I love the job and the opportunities that I've been given for this year.
So last year, you had maybe the biggest call in baseball during that time was when Albert Pujols hit 699 and 700 at Dodger Stadium while you were doing the Apple TV broadcast. What's it like to have your voice attached to such a historic moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's really a surreal situation that unfolded there. I mean, for Albert to hit two home runs in one game, and when you're doing these Friday night games, you get one game. You come in and you do the game, you leave. So to walk into history on a two homer night from a guy who was nearing the end of his career, it was absurd, really. I mean, it was really a special moment, and Albert seemed pretty determined just to get it done that night at Dodger Stadium in front of a Dodger fan base that I think he appreciated from his fairly brief time there, but kind of resurrected his career there. And, then going back to the Cardinals to finish it off and get to 700, it's still nuts because I still hear it. I'll still watch a video, a highlight package, or whatever comes across, and MLB's promotions, and there it is. And it was exciting, that's for sure. And to be at Dodger Stadium, sitting in Vin's booth. I know Joe's been there a while now, but still Vin's booth at Dodger Stadium, and it's seeing that historic moment and calling it, and being the only voice associated with it. Really, it's something that I'll cherish forever.
I was weirdly at that game. I flew into LA because I was doing a YouTube video where I went to 3 games in 24 hours. And me and my friends were joking. We were like, oh, he's going to do it today. Did you have any idea or any feeling? Was there like a gut feeling that he would hit 700 that day?
He had hit 499 and 500 in the same game as well. So there was some precedence to it. He kind of rises to the occasion in those moments. We were prepared for it. I talked to Howie actually about it earlier in that week, and I asked him, I said I might run into history here. I might run into 700. What advice do you have about calling a moment like that? And he kind of gave me his words of wisdom, as he often did, and I took that into that night, knowing that it was a possibility. And really, the bigger possibility was that if he hit one, you'd have it at least an at bat or two with 700 on the line. And Andrew Heaney was starting for the Dodgers, gives up a lot of home runs, a lefty. Albert had been crushing lefties. So I thought 699 was a real possibility. And when he got to 699 early in the game, I would have bet money that 700 was coming next. I was ready. So he didn't waste any time. It was the next inning that he hit his 700th home run. So it was in the air that night that he was getting it done.
You mentioned Howie, and I just remember from listening to radio games over the last, I don't know, like half decade, you and him, your chemistry got so good. You almost felt even attached at the hip, like seeing you guys at the ballpark sometimes. And your chemistry was just off the charts. So you could feel it listening every single game, every single pitch, every single inning. And now you do these you do the Apple games with Dontrelle Willis, but there's less time to build that relationship. But you can still like feel the way that you guys kind of come through and bounce off each other during the broadcast. What's it like developing chemistry with a broadcast partner that you do games with so sparingly compared to someone like Howie, who you guys just had this like incredibly close day-to-day relationship?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think it's kind of organic how those things develop. I mean, Dontrelle, unfortunately, not doing the game tonight. We're happy to have Dan Plesac as well, who's really good, and I think easy to get along with as well. So Dan will be in there tonight and for the next couple of weeks. But Dontrelle, I think, really loves baseball. He loves it, and it comes across on the air. And it's easy for me, as somebody who also loves it, to play into that and find his strengths and what he's good at and the things that he likes, and and I think he's good about getting that out of me too. So it's developed quickly, and we're really friendly off the air, and we make sure to get dinner together before each Friday night game and hang out the way that we can from week to week. So those things just sort of develop. It's kind of just luck of the draw. And I think that what you see on Mets TV and what you heard from Howie and me on Mets radio are all things that just kind of developed naturally. And fortunately those things have been there largely when I've been around. It's certainly possible that it goes the other way, and there's been many considerations of that over the years too on different broadcasts, where sometimes people don't get along that well or don't like each other much, and sometimes still produce a good broadcast where you can't really tell that's happening. Certainly I'm sure the Mets have run into that too over the years. So it's something that I think that if you're on the air and you're making it the best you can, you try to work around any sort of negativity that might be in that booth anyway. But fortunately for me, I have not really experienced that much, and the partners that I've had, especially Howie and now Dontrelle on Fridays, and even Mark Gubicza too on Angels TV. that those relationships are good, and it comes across that way on the air.
With the Dodgers Mets series, the Apple TV broadcast coming up, paint a little picture for us, previewing the series, what we can expect, what we're looking for here with the storylines.
I mean, the Dodgers have been playing great. I mean, they really went into the All-Star break kind of hitting their stride. Mookie Betts has been just crushing the ball lately. And, the Dodgers' last series was against the Angels. So I saw them going right into the break, and they hit 9 or 10 home runs in that series. It was 2 games. They had 5 on Friday, and I think they had 5 again Saturday. I got blacked out by the end of that on Saturday. But, they're rolling, and maybe they get cooled off by the All-Star break. But going into the break, they were red hot. Their pitching has been not as good as usual. The bullpen especially has been not as good as usual. So it's a little bit different how the Dodgers are doing it. They're scoring a lot. The first 4 guys in their lineup are carrying them with the 4 All-Stars, Betts, Freeman, Will Smith, and J.D. Martinez. So they're playing well, and Urias is pitching tonight. And you guys know where the Mets are right now. They need wins. They need them fast. And I think in the next couple of weeks, it's really a determining factor. People are saying definitively that the Mets aren't this or that going into the trade deadline. I don't know how anybody would know that. I don't think the Mets know that right now. You're 6 games under 500, and if you fall further back in these next couple of weeks, it would be silly not to make some trades that benefit you later. So I do think they would sell at the trade deadline to some degree. I don't think they're going to just trade everybody, but to some degree that they're going to be sellers if they don't turn things around. They have to. So we'll see what happens here in the next couple of weeks. But it's a tough series to start for the Mets coming out of the gate. There are always competitive games against the Dodgers. There's always juice in the stadium at Citi Field when the Dodgers are there. So I would expect tonight and the next couple of nights to be fun. And Urias Verlander is a cool way to start the post All-Star break schedule.
Really cool way to start the post All-Star break schedule. And the Mets had a fantastic year last year when you were doing their games. Now this year, the Angels are having an amazing year as you've switched to doing their games. Is there any part of you that feels guilty at all for taking the Wayne Randazzo good luck out west? No.
I wish it was full season luck, because the Angels really struggled going into the All-Star break. They had a really good season going. They were sitting in a wild card spot. And they weren't far out of first. They had a great series at Texas. They won 3 out of 4. And they were making their move. They won the next series after that around Father's Day weekend, and they have not won a series since then. So it has been a rough go for the Angels in the last couple of weeks. They've been crushed with injuries. Trout is out for who knows until when, after he broke his hamate bone. That's a huge loss. Their rookie shortstop has been out. That's been a huge loss. Brandon Drury, who was a former Met, has had a good season. He's missed some time lately, and Anthony Rendon just can't stay on the field. So it's been really tough for them. I'm surprised. Rendon is surprising to me. We saw Rendon in the National League East, and he was just a crusher. And he looks like he's thinned out a bit over the last few years, and he just can't stay on the field. He just gets hurt almost every time that he bangs into something or fouls a ball off himself, or takes a weird step. He goes on the IL. I mean, it's strange to see how Rendon is now compared to how he was in Washington, because he was just an absolute beast every time he had a bat in his hand. So the Angels need that guy to come around, and they need to have some health in the second half here to stay in the race and try to keep pushing.
Angels also brought an old friend of the team, Eduardo Escobar. Have you gotten a chance to talk to him, check in? How's he doing over there?
He's good. He's an American citizen now, so he's happy. He's really moved forward in that, and he's really, I think, done that for his family, and feels like he can bring his parents over now, and things will be good for his family moving forward. So he's good. They said when he got there, he was traded during the Mets Phillies Apple TV game that I did a few weeks ago in Philadelphia. He was traded in the middle of the game to the Angels. Talk about a weird position to be in for me. That was I could not believe that happened. But they said that the way that they greeted him, it was like he had been with the Angels for 10 years already. He just comes in and already kind of sets that ground as somebody that is well respected in the locker room. So, hopefully Eduardo has some good moments. He certainly had a great September for the Mets last year, and
Oh yeah.
and we can find some of that for the next couple of months. I think that would really help the Angels.
Yeah, we definitely know Eduardo Escobar has the potency to get hot at any given moment. But Wayne, gonna wrap this up. Ask our last question. Thank you again for taking the time to speak with us. We have a lot of I'd say our viewership kind of skews younger for this podcast, and a lot of these people are aspiring sports journalists, sports commentators, sports media members. Do you have any advice you want to give to any young aspiring broadcaster? As someone who, if anyone listened to this podcast last year, Wayne has traveled from the depths now to near the heights. What could you tell the young people listening to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you get what you put out. What you put out. I think at the end of the day, the more work you put in, the more time you spend on it, and the more networking you do. I mean, the all around kind of time and effort that it takes to get good at this, it pays off. I think it will. Hardly anybody that I think has really gone after it in that way is still stuck somewhere that is not where they expected to be in some way. So I think the more you put into it, and the more you really go for getting better, meeting people, taking advantage of your opportunities, the further that you'll get ahead. It does take a lot of persistence. Certainly, and as I've gone along here, I got passed up for this or that. There was a lot of rejection, but you just keep grinding it out, and you hope that as you improve, you see more avenues that open up for you. So I was fortunate to land where I did. 9 years ago now, or 8 years ago, when I first got to the Mets in 2015, and a lot more doors have opened. There's less rejection now. There's still some, but there's still there's been good opportunities too, and you just have to take advantage. You have to be ready for when your name does get called.
Mhm.
It was a good example was the Pujols game last year. You have to be ready in case you walk into something that is maybe bigger than something you've done before. And if you nail that moment, then I think bigger things will come from there. So, I think that the more you grind and the more that you make yourself ready for the big moment, you should have some success along with it.
Echoing what James said, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
You guys can catch Wayne on the Apple TV broadcast Friday night, Dodgers versus Mets. It's a big series for the Mets, as we know. We're super excited, Wayne, that you came on here. Again, you're the first or second recurring guest of the Mets'd podcast, so thank you for doing that.
Who's the first?
Matt Eddy, the Baseball America guy for
Yes.
prospect stuff. But
Good point.
in terms of since we've joined the Mets, first recurring guest. So thank you so much again for doing this. We appreciate it. And Mets'd Up listeners, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Mets'd Up podcast.